you have to believe in yourself, and you have to recognize there's always going to be doubters.
Mhm.
It's interesting. I thrive personally on people who don't believe in me. Some people don't. Some people had the
Mhm.
opposite, impact. I was a incredibly mediocre student in middle
Mhm.
school and high school.
Okay.
And, you know, uh, my seventh grade English teacher told my parents at a parent teacher conference.
Welcome to the Your Message Received podcast. And now, taking your message to the finish line, your host, John Duffin.
Hey folks, John Duffin here with Duffin Media. Welcome back to another episode of Your Message Received. Your Message Received is the home, the place, the platform to help you find your best, most true, authentic business voice. Get what you want, find what you need, improve your results. Heck, we might as well just say, find your most true, authentic voice. Look, we offer a lot. Today's guest is promising we'll make billions of dollars if we just listen to him. Maybe I heard him wrong, but we're working toward that. And one of the reasons that the podcast keeps growing is that we get to keep finding people who walk the walk. And today's episode is no exception. We've got an entrepreneur who has literally taken businesses, starting with his own, from a $10,000 business plan competition into a $40 million digital agency, and then sold it and keeps rolling. I'm excited to have Jon Morris here today. Jon, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
John, thanks for having me here. It's great to be here.
Absolutely a pleasure. So I'm a big believer in someone who can start, succeed, continue, succeed, get knocked back, succeed. How did you know? So did I read correctly that this was part of a college thing where you began in terms of the University of Chicago, or was that professional in terms of laying out the actual business plan that got all of this rolling for you?
Yep. So I went to University of Chicago for business school. They have an annual business plan competition. In 2004, I entered the competition. I took second place. 21 years later, I am still very, very bitter. It should have been first. But that was the seed money to start Rise Interactive. And so I took that money and I had this incremental approach. So I used to do a bunch of marathons back when I founded the company.
Ooh.
And when you do marathon training, it's 18 weeks.
Mhm.
And your first long run, like on a weekend, is 6 miles. The next week it's 7, and then it drops down to 5, then up to 9, up to 10, then down to 7. And so it's kind of like 2 up, 1 down. And I was like, that's the approach I'm going to take to my business. I'm going to do it over 20 years. I ended up exiting after 16, but that was the idea. And every year I just wanted incremental growth. And so I'm a big believer in taking a long-term view to your business. It's actually the opposite of what you're taught at business school. At business school, it's all about like, you get private equity, you grow it, you exit in 5 years.
Yeah.
And I feel like you shouldn't be focused on the outcome. You should be focused on the journey. Build something special, build something great. And I promise you the exit will take care of itself if you build something special.
I love the sounds of that. I got to ask you though, you just talk about marathons, how many marathons have you done? Which was where?
I've done 7 marathons, 5 in Chicago, 1 in San Diego, and 1 in Alaska.
Oh my God. So the first marathon that I ran was in 2016 and it was in Chicago.
Okay.
And I was a nervous wreck. And Chicago happens to be one of my favorite cities in the world.
I
Not just in the
appreciate that.
States, in the world.
From Chicago.
I talk about it all the time. Buddy of mine who lives in Chicago was just in town. And so I can still remember, you say 18 weeks. For some reason, I must have smashed it into 16 weeks. And I just remember being a nervous wreck standing at the finish line. And I was alone. I went to Chicago and was standing there in that sea of people and all that sort of thing. And I love the fact that you call that a long range, and in my mind, plan, right? 4 months and change, that it does feel like a long one. What got you interested in running them at all?
So played soccer through college,
Mhm.
then played soccer fairly competitively after college.
Right?
And then my natural body started to break down and I started getting injured all the time.
Okay.
And so I switched from a sport where I was going to get injured every week to a sport where, fitness is one where you can not get injured as frequently.
Mhm.
And so that was the main driver. But then it becomes very addictive. You know, you constantly want to beat your personal best.
Mhm.
There's the whole runner's high, but there's also, I consider it very therapeutic. There's oftentimes just being alone with your thoughts.
Mhm.
It gives you ideas for business, for life. It helps you cope with hard things. So, running's been a big part of my life since then.
Mm. It just makes me happy.
Yeah.
It was I had never seen the city like that, you
Yeah.
know? And I don't run fast, and I was shocked that I finished, but I did. I've run a few,
Congratulations.
and the
Awesome.
destination and I trust me, don't say that to get a pat on the back. Like I said, if you actually watched me run, you wouldn't feel that way. But
Yeah.
it was just that sense of duration. I think about the distance and I think about I had to do it in short pieces. I had to because otherwise I would just gotten overwhelmed, you know?
Yeah.
So you talk about it's interesting, like so I know some colleagues in business that I mean, and they're amazing people that are big believers in build it to sell it, and
Yeah.
and all that sort of thing. You just said I take a longer term approach. So how did that work for you when you started in business? I mean, the longer term approach, because often there are fits and starts with in terms of business. What was it
Yeah.
like for you after coming in second, as you said, regrettably and angrily? You stomp your feet out of the presentation and run businesses. Talk to me about that first leg.
you know,
What was it like?
so a couple things. I graduated in 2005
Okay.
and I wasn't working when I was in school.
Mhm.
So from my mindset, 2004 and 2005 were kind of like free years to work, on the business in a sense that any money I made was more money than I was going to have if I wasn't doing this.
Mhm.
Um, but my biggest fear was to be a business of the living dead, which means you make just enough money to never make any money. And it's so easy in business to be like, well, if I just win this one client, oh, this is just around the corner. And so at some point, you have to have cutoffs in terms of like what you're going to achieve or not going to achieve.
Mhm.
So I had very specific cutoffs in terms of revenue goals. And, my parents and grandma invited me out to dinner. I think it
Okay.
was in 2005.
Mhm.
And so I go and join them for dinner. And little did I know, but it was an intervention. And they did not want me to start this business. Um,
What did they want you to do?
they were very nervous about, I did really well in business school. There was
Mhm.
on campus recruiting, and they felt that there was this window for me to participate in on campus recruiting
Oh,
and get a
okay.
job, like all my peers
Mhm.
at some major organization.
Right.
And they felt that if I missed that window,
Mhm.
that I might become less employable and less exciting and interesting to people after the fact. So I sort of didn't listen to them, but I did listen to them.
Mhm.
And the way I, determined it is I created a goal where I had to generate a certain amount of revenue in order for me to justify continuing with this business.
Right.
And it probably did that for about 5 years, where uh, I happen to be fortunate. I went from 12,000 to 80,000 to 350 to 750 to 1.1 million. So those were my first 5 years of Rise.
So I'm guessing the numbers that you laid out, those not checkpoints. Give me the term again.
milestones. Like they
Cutoff
were,
points. It was the
yeah,
cutoff when you were
yeah.
talking, right? I'm guessing not those numbers and that sort of growth had you well above those cutoff points, right?
They did. And look, I was doing a lot of the work myself.
Right.
So the margins, like if you're doing
Mhm.
350,000 in sales, but you're doing most of the work yourself,
Mhm.
you're actually generating enough for me to support my lifestyle. It was actually a very low, like I didn't need a lot of money based on how I was living at that time period of
Mhm.
my life.
Mhm.
Um, and so I was able to pay all my bills. And, I hired a financial planner, and I constantly was asking him about opportunity costs and how am I doing versus my peer set in terms of people
Right.
who graduated in that same time period. So um, I eventually passed the opportunity costs and I kept going.
What was for you as you were hitting the numbers and you're demonstrating the fact to your family as well as yourself, um, that you didn't make a mistake in regards to doing that? How did you change and evolve as the numbers are growing, as we'll say, exponentially?
So I'm going to answer two different questions. So the
Okay.
first question is like the perception of me when I was running this business.
Right.
Until I would say I hit 2 million, which was year 7,
Okay.
uh, I would say people thought I was an idiot. Like um, I remember I was talking to one of my aunt's friends when I all of a sudden like was clear, like, okay, I was onto something and I was growing up. He's like,
Yep.
John, you used to come to, like the family holiday party and talk about what you're doing. I was like, I had no idea what you're doing. And it
Mhm.
didn't seem like you had anything. And I was like, I just was completely wrong. So at some point I converted people into believers
Mhm.
as opposed to doubters.
Mhm.
And that's a very real thing. I know you and I talked before we started this
Yep.
about resilience is most people, when you start a business, there are more doubters than there are believers.
Mhm.
Uh, Maybe after you've proven yourself, it might be the reverse. I probably have more believers than doubters today.
Sure.
Um, but I can tell you that, a lot of people didn't understand what I was doing, why it was valuable, whether I was going to make it, whether I was going to make any money in those early years. Um, so uh, that took a lot of resilience to, continue to push through and have belief in yourself when a lot of other people don't believe in you.
It's interesting because it's a different sort of resilience. I like this.
Yeah.
Resilience sometimes can be the simple fact of just getting knocked back, or my business is not,
Yeah.
I'm not hitting those cutoff markers. What do I do? Do I
Yeah.
dishonor my word? Do I keep going? Do I just cut bait and
Yep.
quit? Yours was different in the sense that it was more external because you are hitting numbers. And
Yeah.
so the external from to elevate to doubter, so to speak, was
Yeah.
were the noises outside rather than the actual reality. Because at least you knew, I'm guessing at the time, that if you're 7x in regards to revenue, or
Yeah.
if you were then, and as you also said, with low overhead, pretty profitable.
Oh, yeah.
In that regard, you knew. So what's it like at those holiday dinners and or whatever when, as you said, people don't know what you're doing? What, for someone who's starting out, that is more impressionable, like again you're in your
Yeah.
20s or whatever, what's it like how are you commanding the situation for you to keep going?
Well, I think there's a couple things. I think the first thing is you have to be open to listening and maybe they're right.
Right.
Um, if you're stagnant for 5 years in a row and people are like, what are you doing? Well,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you need to start listening to them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and but on the other side is I take a data-driven approach. My numbers, like the way that I would calculate how much money I made in a year was I would take the salary that I was given
Mm-hmm.
plus the incremental difference in revenue on a year-over-year basis,
Mm-hmm.
and I would times that by 2. So if I went from 350 to 750.
Mhm.
That's a $400,000 incremental difference. I times that by 2, and I felt like my market cap went up $800,000 in
Okay.
value, plus whatever I paid myself in salary that year that I made 750,000 in net revenue.
Mhm.
So I use that as kind of the basis to determine, you know, is $800,000 a good return for that year? And I would say yes. And so I
Yeah.
keep going.
Love it. Beautiful.
And the second thing though is, you have to believe in yourself, and you have to recognize there's always going to be doubters.
Mhm.
It's interesting. I thrive personally on people who don't believe in me. Some people don't. Some people had the
Mhm.
opposite, impact. I was a incredibly mediocre student in middle school and high school.
Okay.
And, you know, uh, my seventh grade English teacher told my parents at a parent teacher conference that he was worried that I'd never be able to write a complete sentence, let alone go to college. Uh, and it's amazing how motivating that line has been to me,
Oh, wow.
years later.
Mhm.
And and so and I could see where he would have his doubts. I mean, I did no homeworks. I did horrible on every single exam.
Mhm.
But, my junior year of college, I bought the seventh grade English grammar workbook that we use, and I taught myself how to write.
Hmm.
Just took me, about 9 years later.
And
But
and it's funny because of how, like, when you're outside of the situation, you're like, fine, so you got there. I mean,
yeah,
whatever, you got there. Who cares that if it wasn't in seventh grade or if it was eighth grade? I like, it's weird to me the way the timelines are set up in education, where that sense of pass fail or
yeah,
holding back and all that sort of crazy sort of thing. Um, People hold on
yeah,
to that. I love the idea that you said it still motivates you to this day. That's sort
yep,
of, I find that amazing because when I think about, like, I didn't wind up finishing my college degree until 20 years after I started for a
yeah,
myriad of reasons, most of them not good. But it was, to me, it was done. It was done.
yeah.
And I don't apologize to anyone. And so I love the fact that you took yourself, you grow to educate yourself, and then as I spring forward here, you have this opportunity and you build a company. Meanwhile, this guy's saying, hey, I don't know if he could ever write a complete sentence, and you take a digital agency to $40 million. So
And I can write a complete sentence now.
I'll
So,
bet you
I
can.
got two things going.
And I'm going to ask you, what is growth like in terms of your mind? Right? The numbers are great, but for a guy that's told that, right?
Yeah.
Or God forbid, came in second in the business plan competition,
Yeah.
and it's like, is that a kind of prove them wrong thing? How were you processing success?
So, look, I would say that there's going back to my middle school and high school days,
Mhm.
whether it's to prove it to my doubters or prove it to myself,
Right?
it was definitely a motivating factor,
Great.
Um, and, I actually didn't want to start a business. I
Mhm.
just wanted to win the competition.
Mhm.
The only reason why I started the business is because after I did well in the competition, I had all these believers in me, from these, venture capitalists and,
Right.
major entrepreneurs who were the
Mhm.
judges. I was like, well, maybe I have something here. So
Mhm.
that's why I pursued it. Uh, but, look, today, growth could come in all sorts of forms, but I'm going to talk about it from the business sense.
Please. Oh,
And
no, you can talk about both, but sure.
yeah,
Great.
from, I believe there's only three numbers that matter.
Mhm.
It's how much cash you have relative to your monthly overhead, your
Right.
profit margin, and your
Mhm.
year over year revenue growth.
Great.
And if you're not growing those
Mm.
three numbers, as a CEO, you're not doing your job.
This is, you call the CPR score, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, great.
But on an individual basis, one of the reasons why I sold Rise in
Mhm.
2020 and I
Yeah.
stepped down was I felt like I was stopped growing from a learning perspective.
Mm.
And so my favorite business day of the year is the first business day of the year.
Okay.
So whatever after New Year's Day, whatever, whether it falls on a weekend or,
Yeah.
whatever it is, January 2nd to January 4th-ish is my favorite day of the year. Cause
Why?
I look at it as like, it's kind of like game day. Like, the game is launched. And, I think of it as 1 year games. And I prepare a lot for those games.
Right.
Starting in July, I start putting the pieces in place for what I'm going to do the next year. And in 2019, I put an amazing plan together for 2020, where I really believe that it was going to be an amazing year. There's only one problem with the plan.
What's that?
It was the exact same plan as 2019. And I just felt bored. The other part is you asked me about, as you grow, kind of like how you run your business differently. There are 4 stages of a CEO. The first is the startup phase. So let's just say between 0 and 25, maybe 50 employees, you know who everybody is. You pretty much make every single decision. But you're also in the weeds, like you're doing client work, you're on sales pitches, you're involved in everything.
100%.
And when you get to the next stage, which is what I'll say the growth stage, now you're really starting to empower your leaders, and you got to build infrastructure to allow them to do their jobs. And a really good example was we were having a really hard time with an employee.
Right.
And this person was reporting to an account manager. That account manager ended up becoming the CEO of Rise after I left.
Okay.
And, I fired that employee. And, this account manager came in and was like, I want to talk to you about so-and-so. And I was like, well, I got good news. Like I let the person go today, and like, you don't have to worry about it.
Right.
And his response was, my team will never earn my respect if you make every decision for me. And that was the pivotal moment that I switched from a startup CEO to a growth CEO. Now,
before you continue, I want to ask one follow-up question on that, which is knowing that's hard. Not just to hear what you heard, right? But to be able to pivot. Before you continue, how were you able to take in that sort of, I'll call it negative feedback, because I don't know what else to call it. How did you pivot and make that work for you? I know the outcome, but now I'm going to steal your line. What was the journey like in that process?
You know what? I think that it's really important to have a growth mindset and to be humble. And the reason why I was able to pivot is I agreed with him. Is, I learned about these 4 phases of a CEO later on. Like I didn't know, like, oh, I'm transitioning to a growth CEO now. And, but I recognize that I shouldn't have let go of the person. I shouldn't have been involved with the person at all. I should have let him handle the entire communication, the performance improvement plan, whether he's going to dismiss the person. Like, you got to empower your leaders if you want to build a scalable company. So that was a big learning moment for me.
Thank you.
Now, the next stage is you become what is a mature CEO, and like a mature company, not a mature CEO. But
I gotcha, right?
And so you're now probably at, let's just say, 200 to 250 employees. And at this moment in time, you have leaders in place for every single business unit. And if you're doing your job well, you have amazing leaders in every single business unit. And I did. And what I found was, other than leading the strategic direction of the business, they really didn't need me. Like, I didn't need to be involved in getting into the weeds of like clients. I didn't need to be involved in sales pitches. I didn't need to be involved in the marketing strategy. I needed to set the course of the direction, give it to them, and let them run. And what I found was I didn't like it.
Why?
I was bored.
Okay.
Um, and now looking back, I will say I loved a lot of the resources that I have.
What do you mean?
Like I liked, like right now, I'm doing this podcast with you. I run a professional service community. So I have a bunch of community members, and I had facilitated a monthly speaker. Before that, I had a client meeting. Like I'm in the thick of it. I'm doing lots and lots of different things. And, it's kind of like the grass is always greener. It's like
Mm.
sometimes I miss having people who could do all those things. So it's a little bit of a balance, but I like getting into the weeds. So I I still would love to at least build this to be a mature CEO again. Um, I also have a major guilt factor where I feel like I have to be busy every second and doing something every second. Like even if the business is doing great, like am I adding value? And so I was constantly questioning, am I adding value? Because every business was running so well that I didn't need to be involved in all those things.
I
Um,
find that really interesting and
yeah,
in a great way.
yeah,
I really interesting. I love when you just said a couple of minutes ago when you talked about the sense of you talking about I built this killer business plan and I was all excited for game day on January. We'll just say January the 4th. We'll make it up whenever the
yeah,
Monday is of the year, right? And but the problem was it was the same business plan as the year before.
yep.
Um, is that what I mean? Knowing your story, you also were working when you were running Rise. COVID came in and changed a lot of business models. So, who
So, yeah, so it would have been a very different year, 2020, but I didn't know that in October of 19 when I made my decision.
did, right?
Yeah,
So you've got that plus what you're carrying in your mind in
yeah.
regards to and your board. How did that all, in essence, it was a big decision. How did you get that all to work?
So I made the decision in October.
Mhm.
My wife was, I think, the only person who knew
Okay.
for until January.
Mhm.
The company that bought me Quad, I told in January.
Mhm.
And uh, I told, the circle started growing. I started telling some of the leaders within the company, but the circle was very small
Mhm.
that knew. On March 2nd, I told the whole company. And then on March 12th, 10 days later from telling the whole company, we shifted to a work from home
Right.
program.
Right.
And then I stepped down on April 1.
Still
Now,
fast.
yeah.
I mean, from decisional, that's still a pretty accelerated timeline. Wow.
Um, and, you know, had like the last thing I really love the people who bought the company.
Mhm.
I really love the leaders I put in place. And I'll be very honest.
Mm.
Larry, who took over for the company,
Mhm.
flat out was a better CEO for that time period than me.
Okay.
As he liked to say, he had 250 crying people on his shoulder during COVID, and he
Right.
he just did an amazing job of building their
Mhm.
confidence and letting them know it was going to be okay.
Mhm.
Uh, and I'd like to think that I would do as good a job, but I really don't think I would. Like I was in awe of like watching how he
Mhm.
navigated that. So part of me wonders if it was just meant to be and
Right.
fortuitous that he was meant to take over
Mhm.
during that time period.
Who hired Larry?
I did.
Yeah. And one of the things I think about is in terms of growth and evolution, in terms of business models and stuff, it's one thing to say,
Mm,
and Larry was a better CEO, and you saw that likely, or you saw
yeah,
something because you wouldn't have brought him in the door unless you were, and I've worked in companies
yeah,
where this was the case, the paranoid type that's afraid that they're going to lose something. You at
yeah,
least had the guts and the vision to bring somebody in who was wonderful. If I heard you correctly, I heard that you saying, oh, I had excellent leaders across the
yeah,
board. Well, you, in essence, had the actuality occur. Um, and and a better CEO at the time. And my question with all of that is simply, even when you know that's so, even when you
Yeah.
made the decisions and you set the blueprint and all that sort of thing, what did it feel like to walk away?
So from October to April 1, which is what I stepped down,
Right.
beyond anxious.
Hmm.
It was not a pleasant time in my life.
Hmm.
Um, I was nervous for the business. I was
Right.
nervous for the owners. I
Hmm.
was, I worried about things I just did not need to worry about. And on April 1, all that anxiety went away. Uh, I think different people are built different ways.
Hmm.
I started Fiscal Advocate, my current company, about 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
And um, and I love what I do every single day. I
Hmm.
wake up happy, and I'm really good at finding next, you know?
Ah.
And so I think that if you're not good at finding next,
Hmm.
you might hold on to the past for too long.
Hmm.
I'm still their biggest cheerleader. Nothing would make me happy. I'll tell you a quick story.
Yes.
There's a company in our industry that owned a big event,
Hmm.
and they sold that to another company for like $2 million. And now they were still the figurehead of the event. So, like, they were the MC, the spokesperson, and the brand
Hmm.
behind it.
Yep.
And a couple of years later, the people who bought them sold the company for over $100 million.
Mm.
And it became a lawsuit, and he was fighting for more ownership and more
Hmm.
dollars. And he was very bitter that he didn't get to
Hmm.
participate in that upside. I would love it if Quad sold Rise for $10 billion.
Hmm.
I would lose no sleep over it. They had a huge impact in my life. And if they can gain upside, that's
Hmm.
so much better than the opposite. Like, I'd feel
Right.
horrible
Hmm.
if they got no money for the
Yeah,
investment.
they just got smoked.
Yeah.
And right. So
No.
how do you or do you, I guess, now that you run the business on your own?
Yep.
I just read something that you put up on LinkedIn, which I thought was very cool, where you talked about like something, and you still utilize, through Fiscal Advocate, you still utilize, like I said, your CPR approach, and you still utilize these great findings. But the article that I really liked, just because I just thought it was
Yeah.
cool, was clarity beats complexity, and I bring it up now because now you get the chance, as you just talked about, you've got your hands in on everything again, for the
Yeah.
good and the bad, even when you're missing resources. I miss them too.
Yeah.
But you get to help people. And so when you talk about that specific message, what would you say in terms of business owners that are flailing right now because they got so much going on and it doesn't necessarily make them successful? Now that you're back in the weeds a little bit,
Yeah.
you see things from a different angle. What are some of the things that you could do to help somebody that's listening or watching our
Yeah.
show?
This whole idea of clarity over complexity, or like what I call about simple and elegant, is,
Mm,
you know, business is business is hard. Okay. So,
mm,
but it doesn't have to be complex.
okay.
Like, let's just look at it as there's three KPIs that matter:
Right.
cash, profit margin, revenue growth.
Hmm.
Now let's talk about revenue growth.
Yep.
There's only four ways to grow revenue. You could do M&A, which most companies don't have the capital to do. So I'll take
Right.
that one off the table.
Hmm.
You can reduce churn and increase your retention. You can upsell, or you can win new business. So there's only really three things you can do
Hmm.
to, win new business
Hmm.
or to grow.
To grow. Right.
Yeah. Now, if you talk about winning new business, there's really only four things you can do. You can get more at bats.
Hmm.
You can improve your win rate.
Hmm.
You can uh, increase your average order value, or you can increase your sales velocity. So when you break it down, The goal is to reduce the number of things you're looking at so that you can get to what really matters most.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can ask yourself real quickly, how do you change the math?
Yeah.
So, I'll give an example. I have won about an average this year of one new client a month.
Okay. Great.
Okay. I want to grow next year.
Mhm.
Now I'm not trying to build like Rise. I was trying to build a rocket ship.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to build a rocket ship. I'm trying to build 20% sustainable growth that allows you to double every 3.8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel same view. I have a long-term vision. I want to build a great company. But so I'm going to look to put up a 20% growth number.
Mm-hmm.
I can win the same number of customers and just have them be bigger. I could win more customers. So those are like strategic questions that you have to ask yourself. Like,
Got it.
How do you want to do that? Then you have to say, well, what am I going to do differently?
Mm.
Okay. So if I want to get bigger and I want to win the same number of customers, because it's just as easy to win a big deal as a small deal, well, then how do I get more pitches with bigger companies?
Mm-hmm.
And you just keep on working a little bit backwards to get to this, strategy that you're going to be able to deploy.
So I can't think of any business, small, medium, even larger scale, that couldn't benefit from that specific model, because that's the simple. Did I hear it right? Simple and elegant.
Yep.
I like
Yep.
that too, by the way. I just,
Yeah.
it resonates. I am a big proponent. I'm sorry, let me say that better.
Mhm.
I have caught myself chasing shiny objects and running after the brand new thing. And so anyone who reminds me of that sense of ease, simplicity, without overcomplicating and reinventing the wheel, it really matters. To me, I think it's brilliant. As someone who is looking every 3.8 years to double,
Yeah.
what do you see as the biggest impediment right now in terms of stopping you from that? And what are you doing about it?
Okay. So if I look at my business,
Mm.
the first thing is my clients are really happy and my retention is great.
Mm.
The second thing is my innovation is doing really well. And what I mean by that is I want at the end of the year, my service offering, my product to be better than it is at the beginning of the year. And I feel like we've hit that out of the park.
Mm-hmm.
The big challenge for me at the moment is new business.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and part of the challenge is I have all these benchmark numbers and how much you should spend in sales and marketing versus, and I'm heavily overweighted on innovation
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to new business or sales and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means that I'm the salesperson right now. I'm
Right.
also the head of marketing. And so in order to change the math, I looked at doing a few different things. One of them, which you and I talked about, is I do about 5 podcast interviews a week.
Mm-hmm.
That's only been going on for about a month and a half. So I'm looking to change the math in terms of exposure.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one big thing. I run a community and it's free for any 8-figure service-based company to join the community.
Mm-hmm.
I just hired an AI BDR firm. It's a test to see if it works.
Mm-hmm.
And it's simply to join the community. I make no money off the community.
Mm-hmm.
The way that I make money is once they're a member of the community, I get to build a relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, if they're looking for strategic planning or help with their finances, they'll be able to help there. The third one is I have this expression called double wind. And double wind is you want wind at your back.
Mm-hmm.
And you want wind at your back in 2 ways, hence the word double.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is the services that you offer. And the second one is the customers that you win.
Mm.
So if you have a customer that is growing rapidly,
Mm-hmm.
and you get to hold on to them, you will most likely make more money because they're going to spend more with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next one is, are you offering services that are growing? That was the secret to Rise. I happened to be at a time where massive amounts of media was shifting from traditional linear TV to digital media. And I was there to ride that wave. So we looked at our services and we shifted our technology development, and we're about to go into beta in 2 weeks, and we're going to go launch in January of next year an AI CFO. So think of it as like ChatGPT, but specifically for service-based companies.
Boom.
And specifically for finance, where I think there is wind behind that. And then the other one is a lot of people just wanted to hire me. And I fought it for the longest period of time. I'm like, well, that's going to take me out of sales, or that's going to, make it so I can't run the business as well.
Right.
Well, I was like, if that's the wind, where the wind is blowing, then I'll let them hire me. But then I can use some of that money to put into media or to put into other sales and marketing investments. So those are kind of some of the strategies I'm doing to change the math.
I'm so excited for all of us. Speaking of hire you, what is the best way for my audience to find you?
So they can find me by following me on LinkedIn. I post minimum 3 times a week. Don't miss a week ever.
Great.
Second thing you can do is go to fiscaladvocate.com. We have a resource section, and you can go get a bunch of information there. And then lastly, you can email me at jon@fiscaladvocate.com.
John, you've made this great for me. I want to continue this conversation. I think you're going to help a lot of people. John, thanks so much for showing up for me today. I'm really grateful for the insights.
Thank you for having me here, John. This was awesome.
1000%. Folks, you've just heard another episode of Your Message Received. Keep liking, watching, listening, sharing, all that sort of thing. And we will keep driving content through your front door. John Duffin here, Duffin Media. Have a great rest of the day, folks, and we will definitely talk soon. Bye.
And now, making its way across the finish line, Your Message Received has been a production of Duffin Media.